I want to begin a conversation with you, and good day to you, with all the shocks that are surrounding us, the Ukraine invasion, and then Shane Warne has passed away, and many people live with certain measure of anxiety about what's coming on, why is this happening, and there's what shall I say, reasonable fear of the old order passing away and a very unstable order coming into being. That's what the Ukrainian invasion has signaled. So I want to quote an old scientist, that is Archimedes. Archimedes is the one who said, next slide. Archimedes is the one who said, give me a lever. You know, he's the one who discovered the lever principle, and he's the one who discovered many laws of hydrostatics. He said, give me a lever that is long enough. And he said another thing, give me a lever that is long enough and give me a fulcrum outside the world, and I will even move the world. Got the principle? You know, the lever principle is that there's a rod and you need a fulcrum and you can move up. Now that's what we use for lifting weights, shifting a log, for instance. Let's say this is the fulcrum, and we look for a lever, a rod, and you can lever it little by little and so on. So that's the principle that Archimedes said. Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum outside the world, I'll move even the globe. So with that background, I want to come to the story of how you live your life. Would you right the wrongs? And we know President Putin has gone on emphasizing the wrongs that Ukraine did, for which Ukraine must suffer. That's the law. That is his law anyway. And even it's our laws. If people do wrong, especially people who ought to be good to us, they do wrong, they suffer. And suffering is a universal principle. And so we go for the law and justice of the law. But when we go wrong, we cry for mercy. Even when a constable gets us on the road for on the smartphone with the hand while driving, we say, oh, constable, you know, I was on a call, I'm a doctor. And don't you know, we say things like that. So can mercy triumph over justice? And what do we do to all the bad things that someone did to our life? So I put on my Zoom, do we go from, is there a way we can move from demand to supply? That we demand that others do right, and without righting wrong, W-R-I-T, right wrong. I think we have a slide on it. Yes, the third slide. How do we move from indictment to remission? Third slide. Right wrongs to right wrongs. You get it? So it's an important principle that we have to move from right wrongs to doing it right for others, getting it right for others. Certainly for our children, we have to do this. Mistake management. The first slide is about condemnation to justification. Condemnation to. So these are terms. When did you last feel condemned? First slide. When did you last feel condemned? And next one, condemnation to justification. So condemnation is writing the law, bringing a person before a court case and giving him just deserts, due punishment. That's how the world system operates. That's the legal system. But we want to get on to how can we give the best chance possible to the person without taking him to condemnation. And what is justification? To get him out of the offense, that's another word, offense, for which he should rightly suffer, be condemned. Then the court case goes on. Then there's an adversarial proceeding and someone prosecuting him, and another person, probably a defending counsel and so on. Prosecuting counsel, defending counsel. Now, though I'm talking about a court scene, you understand that often this is not just a court scene, but it is a family scene, relational scene, the condemnation and the indictment. So moving to then justification is a legal procedure when clemency, a ransom, something, good behavior is promised, that he will not be prosecuted any further, he'll be put on good behavior or probation. This is how the process goes. Next slide is what I showed you before, right wrongs or right wrongs. Next slide. So whether we will right another person's wrong or put it right, especially when it comes to mistake management, parents for kids and so on. We want to give, if you say, I'll let you have it if you do it again, or you always do it like this, you remember the last time, then we emphasize the error. When we reinforce the wrong, the child will do the wrong again. Particularly this generation will say, Tati gahan gahan, hit me. So you're trying to hit me, no, hit me. They'll come forward and also say, hit me. So never put a child into that predicament. We can, in mistake management, we don't go to retributive justice. That is, give the fellow what he deserves. The world behaves like that, corporate will behave like that, court cases will behave like that. But there is a plea for clemency, And so without indicting, can we let it go? Remission is an old word. It means let it pass, let it go. Look over the fault. And then we move to redemptive justice, which is to say, do it well for the person who erred. Now, I know these are lofty concepts, but in day-to-day life, this happens to us between spouses, between mom, between parent and child, in master-servant relationships, and even the governing people and the governed people, often they're at loggerheads. Their points of view are different. So the next one I'm looking at is from alienation to reconciliation. That is, there is something working in us that we feel far away, not connected, badly treated. So you may remember a time when someone was very close to you, now alienated. That's what Russia felt about Ukraine, getting more and more into the bosom of the NATO. And Russian justice said, we'll teach the fellow a lesson with missiles. That's how political justice goes. So I want to bring you to a historic event, a very gruesome, brutal event. That is the crucifixion scene. What was the meaning of that? It was the Roman Empire. Jesus Christ was tried under the Roman law. That's why the punishment, the capital punishment was executed by crucifixion. You either tie the person to the cross or you nail the person to the cross. That was a very barbaric Roman execution method. Now in Sri Lanka, we know it's a hanging. Some countries, electrical chair. Some countries, an injection of cyanide that clogs up the hemoglobin system and person dies. Anyway, the Roman system, the mode of execution was crucifixion. So why was he taken before the Roman system? Because the Jews at that time didn't have jurisdiction over death. The Roman court, the Roman governor, so the famous Pontius Pilate, had to give the verdict to sentence to death. So he was tried. The Pilate said, I don't find anything wrong with him. Then Jews shouted, particularly the Jews hierarchy. Jesus Christ angered the Jewish hierarchical system because the priests were angered because he said anyone can come to God. You don't need priests. So that really angered the Jewish hierarchical system. But they brought him before Pilate saying he said he's a king. When Pilate said there's nothing wrong with him, because Pilate's wife said, don't do anything to this just man, he has done nothing wrong. Even governors listen to wife. Pilate tried to save him. But the Jewish hierarchy, mainly the priests, said, if you try to save him, you are not friend of Caesar. That was the case. So he was ultimately tried for treason to be a king. Then he was asked, are you a king then? They are saying it. Then Jesus Christ said, it is recorded, my kingdom is not of this world. But the point I want to make is, what was this crucifixion about? Everybody agrees that Jesus Christ was a good man, just man, good teacher, moral teacher. Everybody agrees. He spoke for peace. Then why was he put to death so violently? So that's the point at which I'm trying to say all of humanity's debt, all of humanity's error, and how we treated each other, the Ukrainian invasion and anything else that man has done against man. So what happened? What did he feel on the cross? They whiplashed him. The Roman whip was a whip with 9 cords of leather, the thin leather strips. Each leather strip was impregnated with sharp thing, iron pieces and so on. So when they lashed him on the back went to pieces, and some people died by the whiplashing. It was called the cat of 9 tails. It was such a sharp whip. Now we know the last king of the Kandyan kingdom, Sri Vikramaraj Singha, his court was full of whips hanging on the walls, if you know Sri Lanka history. And whenever a dignitary came to meet him, they presented him with a whip. And he used to punish people by himself, lashing people personally till he was foaming at his mouth, and he gets very violent with the whiplashing. So his whole court all over was hung up very ornamental whips used by him personally to lash people to death. That is a terrible form of punishment. So Roman system also had the whiplashing, but of course then he would be put up on the cross. So cross was a vertical pole and a horizontal pole. Something he carried that to a place called Golgotha, which meant place of the skull. Now, if you go to Israel today, just outside the east gate of Jerusalem, there is a rock about the height of a coconut tree, 3-story building. So there is a rock. It takes the shape of a skull. And the strange thing is, it has 2 holes like caves that look like eyes, and another cave below that looks like a mouth. So when it was called Gabbatha in Aramaic, it means skull, and the Calvarium, from which Calvary comes, it means a skull. So I wanted to do this. I'm Dr. Lalith Mendis. I have done many talks on science, the digital issue. I always recommend parents to please take some of my books from Sarasavi Bookshop. This is about children are heritage. And then these are very good books for, this is, it's available in English, Sinhala and Tamil from the Sarasavi Bookshop, which is the upper bookshop, and our own Apeksha Bookshop at Borella. Please take some of this book, Lama Vi Suraknu Turunuya Demu, to get children off digital trouble. Also, I have offered the corporate to do a seminar, a webinar, so that children don't get digitized too much. By the time parents come to me, children are far gone. I was head of Department of Pharmacology in the State Medical Faculty, and the digital screen affects the brain chemistry. That's why I do so many talks on the digital screen. We also have empathic motor therapy center at Borella, Leslie Ranagala Mawata. If any parent is interested in getting your kid off digital screen, the mode of therapy is called empathic motor therapy. That's an innovation. I presented a seminar on this to the SLMA, and it has to do with grips and ropes on a child's toes and fingers, gets his brain tracts back into working order. So let's get back on track. So I'm Dr. Lalith Mendis, and if you have any more questions on this subject, or you need some digital clips, please send a WhatsApp to 076 313 4800. So what happened on the cross? On the cross, the whiplashing went on. That's like the tongue lashing we give each other. Nails were pierced probably between the ulna and the radius, so that a person's weight can be borne by, A person's weight can be borne by hanging him when the nail is through that. So nail was not through that, not through the palm, but probably through the between the ulna and the radius, two strong bones you hang. The thing, sometimes they would tie the person, and the person hangs, and the legs are suspended, so to say. So what happens is you can breathe, but you can't exhale because the diaphragm is not working unless your feet are on terra firma. So what they do is they grip the vertical pole of the cross with their thighs, and they start to like that. Very difficult breathing. And what happens is air gets trapped in the lungs, and the lung pressure goes up. Then the right ventricle begins to fail, and water begins to accumulate around the lung, in the pleural cavity, and around the pericardium. That is around the heart. There's a little wrapping pericardium. Water begins to accumulate there. Then what happens is the heart can't beat properly. That is called cardiac tamponade. And the patient dies of a kind of heart failure, not by blood loss. So when the person on the cross goes on somehow breathing by gripping the vertical pole of the cross between his legs, what the Roman soldiers do is break the legs. So they came to do that to Christ also. You know, he went up on the cross at 9 a.m. and the noonday darkness came. And I have a book called Red Blood Moon and a Crown of Thorns. If you send me your address, I'll try to get that book to you, which describes the full medical phenomenon and the legal issues involved. Noonday darkness and the geophysical phenomena are attested by historians like Africanus. But today our talk is on what is the meaning of the cross for mankind, particularly in a world that people have forgot to make peace. You know, UN in 1945 used the slogan of Isaiah the prophet, man shall not learn war anymore. They will make plowshares out of swords and pruning hooks for the vineyard out of the spear. That was the motto, axiom of UN when it was formed in 1945, League of Nations. Now man seems to be again turning, making swords out of plowshares and making more spears out of everything. Of course, missiles is the modern day thing. So there's some change of psyche going on in the nations. I suggest after the pandemic phenomenon, strong men of the nation decided we have enough, we take the decision. So my clip number 327 is about why would nations behave belligerent? Why have they got back to war? Why are they giving up on peace? What changed? Much has changed. So few global elite have planned it to get all the nation's resources into their hand, and national strongmen will oppose it. So there is really a war between the globalists and the nationalists. That's what, I'm not saying either party is right. I'm just pitching the phenomenon of why nations are going at each other's jugular. And we're all wondering, when would Israel be next, or when would Taiwan be next? Maybe you are even thinking, will it happen to my own nation? So it is a time like that. So here are the things that were done. Then Jesus Christ was dragged through the dusty streets of Jerusalem, and thorns came, thistles came, brutality came, insults came. All what man does to man came on him. But his first word on the cross was, Father, forgive them. Father, forgive them. So this was a cry to the world and a lifestyle to adopt. Father, forgive them. Then noonday there was an eclipse that came, which is historically recorded, and there was an earthquake, and it was felt even up to Rome, is said by Africanus. And the noonday darkness was a global eclipse seen from many parts of the world. So these are some of the sign-ups of historic credibility, accreditation, and Pontius Pilate is a recorded governor of his day. And the event took place in April 3rd of AD 33. April 3rd of AD 33. You can nail the day. so precisely. But today, what else happened? That is the physical part of the cross. So when the Roman soldiers come to certify death, what do? They pierce the person. And when you pierce the person, they know if he's dead, water and blood will come. Why water? Around the pericardium, there would be water. Roman soldiers know that. And also because the blood clotting would have separated and he was dead. By 3 p.m., it was all over. They took down from the cross. So that's the physical part of the cross. What was the legal part of the cross? As I said, we were into condemning people, and all those condemnations he took up. A kangaroo court and all that he took up. So what is justification? The one who was condemned is offered pardon on the basis of another's valid testimony. So the valid testimony, the life ransom, so to say, of Jesus Christ that he offered is offered for us for pardon. So with condemnation, there are other words: justification, pardon, acquittal. It sounds quite a bit like a court case, isn't it? So at the end of it, he said from the cross, it is decided and finished. Last bit of human strength, he gathered and said it, and he passed away from human life. But the story is that he presented his credentials for whole of mankind, and on Easter morning, he came back to life. So I'm explaining the cross really because many people are bewildered. What is this cross? Even those who have gone to church lifelong are bewildered. What is the cross? Now, my own personal history is that my father was an atheist. He was a famous maths teacher from Moratuwa. I attended St. Thomas's College, where we go to chapel every day. But by the time I got to A-level, studying Darwin, and then I became first in the island in the A-level examination, sitting from St. Thomas's College, chemistry, physics, zoo, botany, zoology, botany. I entered Colombo Medical Faculty, and I topped the batch in every exam. And when I was atheist, I was so proud of my brain ability. I didn't care for anybody's wisdom. So I got involved in an argument with a friend who played chess with me. And I always criticize his old books and who believes. He said, what you are criticizing, have you read? I said, no, I haven't read. What's the point in reading old books? He said, only a fool criticizes what he hasn't read. I was very angry because nobody has called me a fool. I wasn't a fool. So I said, give me your book. And he said, this book, the first book is called Genesis, and read that. So, and he said, there's a book called John's Gospel. I did not know what gospel meant. I did not know who John was. So I was more interested in the first book, and I started reading it, and it had a good description. It said there was first light was first created, then atmosphere with oxygen was created, then the liquid state was created. I was very impressed. I said, looks like a scientist did it. Pretty good description. I wasn't believing, but to my intellect, it appealed that a good scientist has done a good job. Therefore, I got to reading the thing called the John's Gospel, only to argue with my friend. So I keep arguing, because that was my nature. I was a college debater in Sinhala language and English language, so I argued. My hobby was arguing, get people irritated with anything they say. I say the opposite, and I have enough knowledge. I used to read encyclopedias of science. I was a knowledge addict. So I argued. So I came to John's Gospel, chapter 8, and it had a story about a woman caught in the act of adultery, just like Martin Vikramasinghe's Paukariyata Galgasima. My father was a Sinhala scholar, so we read Madalduwa, Pigama, Rohini, all of Viragya, Kaliyuga, Yugantya, all that. Bhavatarani was not written at that time. So I was familiar with the story in the Sinhala. So I read it and found that this woman was caught in the act of adultery, brought to Jesus Christ, and he said what to do with this woman to trap him. Jesus Christ said, he that has no sin, cast the first stone. I was reading the book, and then later I got to know it's called the Bible. I was just reading this, And as if someone popped up out from the book and looked at me, or looked at my inside and said to me, that is your problem. You have a stone in your mouth all the time. You don't care even if your friends get hurt because you want to win the debate. I said, who says that? Quite right. I hadn't realized with my brilliant brain, my heart was shrinking, getting hard, and winning arguments, creating arguments. I said, this is true. So next time I went to play chess with my friend, I didn't talk much. I was silent. He said, why are you silent? Where are your questions? I said, this is what happened, this book. I was reading your book, I was reading, and this came out and said to me, you are like this, and it's true. You see, even with you, I argue, even if you get hurt, I don't care. I said, I realize that's not a good thing. I like a change. He said, you can pray to this Jesus Christ. I said, I don't know. I don't need to pray. Small days we pray before exams, but I became an atheist. Then he said, you can say it with me. So I said what he said. And a strange peace and calm came inside me, and I felt besides the brain, there's a thing called the heart. I did not know about it. So alienation changed to reconciliation. Peace through the cross, to reconcile all things. Because we were alienated, enemies in our mind, and doing wicked works. Three things wrong with man: alienated from good. The Father who gave us life, alienated. You know what happens to a son who gets alienated with his earthly father. You might have heard about the story of the prodigal son who left it saying, I'll do my own thing. And father had to give his part. He went and squandered, but father, lamenting, waited for his return. And thank God he came back. So that is alienation, gone far from what was best. Then getting enmity. So nations have gone far. But I want to make this point. Before nations went far, families went far. In family, life has really dwindled out. Marriage was meant to be lifelong. Fidelity lifelong. Give me a minute. Fidelity lifelong. And I wanted to show this book, Life, Light and Love. This is available from Saraswati Bookshop and Apeksha Bookshop. If you like to know more, please send a WhatsApp to 076-313-4800. So recognize this alienation, that which is best in you has gone far away. Once we were milder, hopeful, more altruistic, all that has gone off. Then enmity has come, race between race, caste and caste, then even gender enmity, different kinds of enmity, haves and have-nots. People are divided on political lines, obviously, but on many other lines, people keep the divisions. And how do we get out of demand mode to supply mode? So on the cross, Jesus Christ supplied all our need. And he gave us grace for what went wrong. Excuse me. So Archimedes' theory that to change the world or shift the world, to move the world, that you need a long lever and a fulcrum. It's a technical term in physics. Some of you will remember from physics, the fulcrum. So Jesus Christ's life became a fulcrum, came from outside and became part of us and made his life available to us. That's the Easter story. And then the long lever is what he did for us to move us from demand to supply mode. So when I was playing chess with my friend, and then he said, this Jesus Christ is a living person now. I said, no, Jesus Christ is dead. That's Good Friday. In my hometown, Morocco, everybody goes to church on Good Friday. I had a very religious aunt. Our home never went to church because my father was atheist. Everybody in the town knew him. He was a political activist, famous maths teacher. He was a A-level Sinhala teacher. And everybody knew that we never go to church. Anyway, Good Friday, I knew. Everybody wears black because Jesus Christ died on Good Friday. Then Tony said, my friend said, he not only he died, he came back. I said, came back to life. I said, I did not know that. He said, that is Easter. I said, Easter also I know. Every junction in Morotua has a slaughtered pig on Easter Day. All my uncles and cousins get drunk on Easter Day more than on Christmas Day. So I said, that's the Easter I know. He said, that's very sad. But actually, that it is the day that Jesus Christ came back to life. So this is the alienation to reconciliation, condemnation to justification, indictment to forgiving, and then we have debt mortgage to redemption. That is to say, many things good in us went into mortgage. It is as if we don't hold it anymore. Someone else is using our talent. Talent gets used. See the scientific talent, how the virus was created in a lab. Then a whole lot of theories were created and the world was run on the virus for 2 years. And the best management, early treatment was not given. Thankfully, in Sri Lanka, we were able to implement it, and my knowledge on pharmacology was somewhat helpful towards that. And College of General Practitioners accepted an article I had written. And so we managed to do something in our nation. But up to this day, in UK, nothing is given. People die. So you can see how scientific genius took the world into mortgage, shutdown, lockdown. Almost all countries suffered and debt tripled, trillions multiplied in debt, and 154 billionaires got very rich. Just the 2 years created 24 new billionaires. From scratch, they made humongous sums of money supplying material like masks for the pandemic. So that's it. So anyway, debt mortgage to redemption has this concept. You know, in the olden days, the slave market, the slave is up for to be sold. Then people check his muscles, check his teeth, check his health, and say 100 denarius. Those days, denarius was the wage of 1 day. Persons were treated like property under Roman law. And then another person will say 125. Now, let's say there was a father watching this and he said, I buy him for 250 denar. He just upped it. Then his colleague said, don't be silly, this young fellow can't work like that. He's not worth 250. But he said, I buy him for 250. So immediately the bid stopped, auction stopped. This boy was taken by this father and he took him to the side and said, son, I didn't buy you to be a slave. I took you on that you can be my younger son. I have another son. So you become family member. This is what Jesus Christ did on the cross. He paid off all debt, moral debt, spiritual debt, relational debt, any other debt, and made us family members in God's house. So next one, I'm finishing soon. Enmity to peace. Different enmities we have inside for things that didn't happen our way. If our parents did not know how to raise us up, if father abdicated home, the different hurts we have accumulated. So these were our expectations. This was our reality, expectation. Between that was a howling gap. And in that howling gap, what did we have? We had, in that howling gap, we had hurt, we had humiliation, we had horror, fear, who cares for me? Nothing will go right. Then we had hatred, some reacted with anger, grew a Trotsky beard and a Marxist beard and joined the Marxist movement, angry all the time. And then we had excess, meaning things going wrong all the time. To this came the cross of Christ. And we came with condemnation, he gave us justification. We came with enmity, he gave us friendship. We came with alienation, he gave us reconciliation. Did you understand? We came with ruin, he gave us restoration. So this is the story of the legal instrument of the cross. We come to it and he gives us what he has, and we yield what we had gathered the wrong way in our life. So all the wrongs that were written against us, he righted it, put it right. All the negatives, he put a positive. So we brought the negatives, He put the positive. So that is the sign. Few things more. Debt, mortgage, enmity to peace. Then I think that's about it. Orphan to adoption. That's also offered to us. Orphan to adoption. We orphans behave in a way, how much ever you have, not enough. There's a description of orphan nature that I will read to you. Description of orphan nature. Just hold on. That's enough. We'll finish it. Eddie will finish with the orphan nature. Orphan nature. Give me a minute. I'll get to you. How we behave in this alienated world. Give me just a second. I'll get to you that. A generation is described. The behavior of as if no one can, the woke culture, the cancel culture, be over nobody, anything kind of thing is increasing. And young fellows leave a nation by the droves, and they are looking for their better future in another country, siblings strewn across, families disrupted. So this is the world that is fashioning post-COVID more than ever before. So there's a generation who curses his father and does not bless his mother. So curse is a very strong word. What does it mean? Diminishes parenthood, diminishes family. There is a generation who is pure in his own eyes, is not washed from filthiness. That is, there's a generation that thinks consumerism, at any rate, sexual deviousness from very young days, that's okay. Then abortions, God thinks abortion is murder because that new life belongs to God. And it happens all the time because of the profligacy of living. So don't think I'm talking condemnation. I'm saying all what was brought to the cross. And the generation that is emerging. Then there is a generation, oh, how lofty are their eyes. And their eyelids are raised always. So the next thing, next thing, next thing. This is what the digital screen does. The dopamine drive, dissatisfaction about the present. Get the next thing for me anyhow, somehow. That fashions an entire generation. The Snapchat drive, the restlessness, the influences. The TikTok is producing a Twitch. And I encountered children who are talking rank filth. And they don't know they did it. There was an old syndrome known to pediatricians called Tourette's syndrome, but it has appeared in a very nasty way. We are wondering how to tackle it. Parents are contacting me. So if you have to contact 076-313-4800, don't wait till it's too late. Yes, we want to train the parents to be the therapists, and I have offered this webinar for corporates to please get onto it. So there is lofty are his eyes and eyelids are raised up. There is a generation whose teeth are swords and his jaw teeth are knives. That is to say, very nasty with their speech. Now, don't condemn them. We need to find solutions to them. So I'm reading from a good book, 30th chapter of the book of Proverbs in the Bible. You will understand how much this knows, what has happened. It knows about wars. It speaks about the Northern Army. I've done a clip on it, clip number 327. Today is about what did the cross do? Why was the cross? How does it personally apply to me? So we can receive this good shepherd and know how his cross works for us in day-to-day life, mind you. Kind of teeth that are very sharp, nasty speech. There's a generation who devour the poor from the earth and needy from among them. So you can see that it's a time the poor are completely marginalized. That's what the COVID pandemic did. Riches and the resources of a nation have ended up in the hands of very few people. So the globalists are at war with the nationalists. And that final war is called Armageddon. And the last attitude, a generation who always say, give, 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 who are never satisfied, who will never say enough. So I think I have done. I'm saying all this can come to the cross. We can move from demand to supply. That's my thesis. And the Good Shepherd is ready to help us. Thank you very much for listening. Maybe we will join again. I'm Dr. Lalith Mendis. My last post was as head of Department of Pharmacology in the State Medical Faculty. Please ask for the clips, 0763134800, and please get some of my books on the digital problem and children behavior. It's a sociological problem as much as a medical problem. I don't think doctors can settle it with drugs just like that. That's not the way it goes. We have to make parents the therapists, lifestyle changes, home coaching, all this is possible. Thank you for listening.